What is up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing a chill session where we're actually going to be building a deck here. This is essentially the ice barrier deck that I actually got, the freezing chains. I haven't even opened up these two yet. There was actually dust collecting on top of this, so luckily they're both sealed up. But with this one, it's been so long, like if you actually look at the cards, the foils, they're actually all warped. So that's definitely quite unfortunate. I'm gonna have to put it under textbook to actually flatten it out again, but you know, that's okay as long as it's still in its right quality over here. But yeah, with that being said, today I wanted to actually just spend some time and actually build the deck for once. I'm going to be building two versions of the deck. So the first version I'm building is going to be a budget variant, focusing on just these three. And later on I would actually make some adjustments and build an actual proper deck out of it. And yeah, it's going to be quite fun because a lot of these new cards definitely are quite exciting. So with that being said, we're just gonna go over each of these cards and pretty much see what's worth actually adding on to the deck. So firstly, we obviously have our Revealer of the Ice Barrier, absolutely amazing card. Essentially this card allows you to actually put your ice barriers into the graveyard and go for some Monster Reborn plays. So that would actually be quite nice. I don't recall if there was actually Monster Reborn. I mean, we do have Surface and we do have Salvage, which I do wish that we could actually do more than that, but you know what, it's okay because you could actually just ditch off a card with Revealer and special summon a tuner from your deck, and then of course you could revive back using Surface, which would absolutely be amazing there. So Revealer is quite nice. In the graveyard she also has her own effect, allowing her to, I guess, act as her own fodder, discard fodder, by banishing herself instead, so reduces the cost. Then of course, as you know, with ice barriers you have the synchro monsters, the boss monsters that kind of discard cards from your hand to activate their effects. So with that being said, the Revealer is definitely a fantastic addition. And you know, since we're getting the free special summon from the deck, Revealer is definitely a 3-or for the deck here, so that's something I am definitely certain about. Alright, so next here we have Speaker. Speaker is definitely very nice. It prevents your opponent's defense position monsters from actually switching back out again, but at the same time, if you actually have an ice barrier on the field, you simply can just special summon her from the hand, which is definitely very nice. Allows you to either combo off and go for some XEs plays, or maybe even some synchro plays as well, or link plays of course. So definitely very fantastic, but you could also just banish this card from the graveyard and special summon an ice barrier token, allowing you to either go for synchro summons, link summons, whatever you actually need with the Speaker for the barriers. So I love the fact that you actually have a monster effect or a field effect, and you also have a graveyard effect as well, giving them more versatility. But with Speaker, again, because of the easy special summon, I am definitely going to be playing 3 copies of her. Even if it's a hard once per turn, it doesn't really matter. It's just something you want to be consistent with for that particular card. And even if you have extras in the hand, you could always just discard it using the Revealer or any of your other cards anyway, so it doesn't really matter in that case. Next here we have Zujin. Zujin is definitely quite an interesting one. You could actually just tribute off this card and special summon any level 5 or higher ice barrier monster from your hand. So quite interesting, very nice. There are specific ice barrier monsters that are really good that are actually high level, so having this is definitely a fantastic addition to the deck. I'm particularly thinking about General Guntala. That would be a nice card, but Yeah, Zhejian is a fantastic card here, and of course if it's also in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent, of course, you could also just target any level 3 or higher water monster and reduce its level by exactly 2, and if you do special summon this card again, but it gets banished. But you know, that's okay because it's more so an extender for your players. As you can see, it's a level 2. So you could really just make up a bunch of levels to get into your synchro summons, particularly with Trishula. So definitely quite nice here. Not necessarily a card you have to play 3 of, but I could see myself playing between 2 or 3, depending on how we actually go with this particular deck here. So next we also have Winds Over the Ice Barrier. You could just tribute any number of ice barriers and special summon that same amount of level 4 or lower ice barriers from your deck with different names, and then during your main phase, except the turn this card was actually sent to the graveyard, you could also banish this card and then target one of your ice barriers that's either banished or in your graveyard, and then add it back to your hand, allowing you to actually recycle. And that's kind of necessary given how often you're going to be discarding with your synchro monsters effects. So this card, I easily see myself playing 3 copies of it, even though it has a hard once per turn for each of the effects. It's still really amazing. And of course, with the synchro monsters, I mean the extra deck monsters here, we have exactly 5 extra deck monsters. I don't think there's any extras, so if you're playing 3 copies of each, you may as well just maximize the amount in your deck, you know. But yeah, with that being said, we also have General Wayne. Definitely quite an interesting card. It was one of the more lackluster cards. Basically, spells and traps sent from the field to your opponent's graveyard are instead banished, which, yeah, it's fine. But you could also use each of the following effects once per turn. So if your opponent controls a monster and you control an ice barrier monster, you could special summon this card from your hand, and if this card is summoned, you could add an ice barrier spell trap from your deck to your hand. So it's nice for the fact that it could special summon out itself and then add something, but the issue is it's still a level 5 monster, so it kind of is held back in some sort of way. However, if you can combo this off with some of the other cards, then you could definitely just make this work, because its effect to search for the spells and traps is conditional based on it just being summoned out, which is definitely quite nice here. But yeah, as a level 5, it does have its some limiting effects in that particular regard. But with that being said, we also have Hexa here, also a new card. I'm not going to go over every single card, of course. I'm just going over the new cards, so everything after this is pretty much just going to be stuff that I won't bother reading out. But yeah, with the Hexa, while you control another Ice Barrier monsters, then monsters your opponent controls loses 500 attack and defense. So kind of a great way to weaken their monsters, but it is a tuner after all, so you're going to be using it for a synchro summon. During your main phase, you could send a level 3 or lower water ice barrier from your deck to the graveyard. If you do, this card's level becomes that same amount until the end of the turn. Definitely great to meet certain conditions that actually go for your synchro plays. But yeah, with that being said, we have a bunch of ice barriers here as well. These are all the old ones. I remembered a specific way as to how I would actually play this particular deck. The issue is more so, would some of these cards still be viable? So in this case, you could see Blizz, or Blizzard, I guess. It's not really something that's viable anymore because of how slow it is in the deck itself. It's not even a tuner monster as well. We also have Cryomancer. There is kind of like a lockdown. You can actually play with it, but you'd play it more so with a frog engine, which we're not going to be using in this particular one, since we don't actually have all the frogs here. We're not actually given every frog. We only have 2 of them, so that's quite unfortunate. Prior is definitely a card we could actually start out for the deck, so that would be nice. Defender, also a level 3 tuner, very amazing. Works with the Hexa, of course. And with that being said, this card, it's just really good. I mean, it's also a lockdown as well, pretty much. Like, while you control another Ice Barrier monsters your opponent controls cannot declare an attack if their attack is greater than or equal to this card's defense. So definitely going to be very hard for your opponent to get over this. But of course, this card doesn't really, I mean, it's still very strong, but in this day and age, it is a bit slower. It is still vulnerable to just getting popped or by card effects, so yeah. But we have Warlock, Spellbreaker, not really cards we'd use. Strategist used to be good, but I don't think it would really apply in this case anymore. You discard a card and you draw a card, which it's not the greatest anymore. There are definitely better cards out there, thankfully, but yeah, with that being said, we move on. Dance Princess, although it's an amazing card for the artwork and everything like that, and it's a fan favorite, it's not necessarily the best card to play. We also have Yugioh. This card could actually work in some sense where you're actually protecting your ice barriers from spells and traps, but at the same time, is your opponent really going to be playing cards like Dark Hole or Raigeki? Not really. So Yugioh kind of lost its edge in this particular manner. We also have General Raiho, not really a card that's used. Medium is something that is actually used because this card can actually prevent your opponent from making speedy plays. So if anything, I might play 1 or 2 copies at best, but we'll see what happens. So here is General Gantala now of the Ice Barrier. This card was the card where it's one of the main beat sticks at 2700, but it could also bring back one of your ice barriers from the graveyard and at the end of the turn. So while it's a bit slow, if you combo this off with the defender, you could definitely come off with some kind of combo or some kind of lockdown of some sort with the medium as well, both applicable in either way. So Gantala is definitely nice on that regard, but obviously 1 copy at best. We also have here the Grunard, not really a card we're using. Genix Controller and Undyne, definitely really nice because of the fact that this card kind of just accelerates some plays, so I could see myself playing an engine of this in the deck itself. Aqua Spirit, you don't really need it. The Frog Engine, Fishborg Launcher, Moon Glacier, not really. Silent Angler, free special summon, definitely a great card for extensions, particularly in synchro plays in this manner. And we also have Freezing Chains, definitely a 3 of, because of its effect being so amazing. We have Medallion, it's a searcher for the deck, so definitely. Mirror, no. Salvage, we might play a few. Surface, it's pretty much the Monster Reborn. Wear After Hour, you don't really need it. A Pointer, Fiendish Chain, Icebarn. We could come back to these later because they're not particularly special in any kind of way, but if we have enough space then we might add it in, so that would be quite nice here. But you know, these are essentially the cards itself for the deck, so it is quite interesting to see how we might be able to play this off. So seeing all of these here, I want to get a good idea of at least what I have in the deck itself, so that way once we actually build it, everything would work out well. So let me just refocus there. So right off the bat, we're thinking 3 copies of Revealer. We might play, for now, I'm actually just going to play 3 copies of Speaker. If I was building a full deck, I probably wouldn't be going for 3 copies, but in this case I would. And then for Zujin, we're also playing another 3 copies as well, so that puts us at 9 cards. 3 copies of Winds, definitely. These are kind of like the staples, so yeah, that's great. General Wayne, I probably would play 2 copies of this at best, so 12 plus 2 making 16. We also have Hexa here as well. Most likely only playing 2 copies of this, so that would make it 18 cards now. And these kind of round up for the staples of the deck. And then as for cards that we're playing only 1 of, we're playing 1 medium, and we're going to go with 1 General Gantala here. So these definitely work well in that regard, and this would bring our count to at least 20. As for Prior and all of these other cards here, it is quite situational on whether or not we have the space. For example, Defender might switch between 2 or 3 copies. You definitely want at least 2 of these, but yeah, like 2 or 3 copies definitely would work quite well for the deck itself. We also have the Silent Angler, which we're also playing maybe 2 or 3 copies as well. So at this point we're looking at about 24 monsters already. And then don't forget about the Gen X engine as well. You're going to be playing 3 Undines and 1 controller, so that's another 4 here. Very, very big deck right now, like big monster count that is. So yeah, it could get a bit messy. We're around 28 cards for monsters, right? Yeah, 28. So I would probably at this point drop down Zujian to 2 copies and drop down the let's see, maybe the speed card to 2 copies as well, allowing us to then free up space. So we're now at like 26. And then as for prior, we're going to play maybe 2 of these as well, allowing us to bump it back up to 28 cards. This is just a rough idea, of course. And then finally for these, I'm thinking let's play 2 copies of Surface, 1 copy of Salvage, which brings us to 31. We have here 3 copies of Medallion for sure, and 3 copies of Freezing Chains. So that's another 6 cards. We're at 37. We allowed 3 more cards in the deck itself. I'm thinking already with this particular deck here, we're going to be playing Crackdown. I just think it's a great card to negate the opponent's stuff. I even use this card as an alternative to Impermanence. So with that being said, 3 copies of that brings us to around 40 copies, but you know, that's just a rough idea of what I'm actually doing here. I will definitely test things out, see if it works or not, and then we'll actually have a final revised version of it in the next video. And then hopefully I might also show off some test hands just to see how things go here. Let me focus up here, sorry about that. And yeah, that should be okay, but definitely let me know what you guys actually think about this. Was there any cards that I was actually missing out here? Because I'm definitely open to taking suggestions from you guys to actually enhance this particular budget variant of the deck itself, and then we'll see how we actually go in the test hands. So yeah, that's definitely going to be quite fun. But yeah, with that being said, definitely let me know what you guys think. And yeah, like, comment and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell notification. But with that being said, I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll see you all next time.